Yeah. You just got it, then we're off. So Kate's going to give us an introduction to retrofit to sort of kick off our evening, really, I think, aren't you, Kate? You're muted. Oh, yeah.
Great, thank you, Chris. Yeah, quite high level overview on how we can use retrofit to tackle multiple crises in our homes. And this is partly based on a briefing note that I wrote last year and partly based on a kind of local data and information that I've gathered. So the crises which I have in mind based on research are the cost of living, and we all know about energy bills and energy prices going up. This can have a knock-on poverty, fuel poverty, and that has health impacts. And then we've got energy security and climate resilience. And we really have quite a lot of inequalities in our housing stock and in our household situation. So at the one end, we need to be alleviating fuel poverty. At the other, we really need to be reducing energy demand. And just for a little bit of context on greenhouse gas emissions, UK homes contribute around 16% of these, mainly from heat. And then around a third of our national electricity consumption goes into the home. And collectively, this contributes to around 1/3 of our carbon and greenhouse gas emissions. Focusing on fuel poverty to begin with, that's the result of three main factors: the low income, high energy prices, and inefficient homes. And of course, we can't do much with retrofit on a low income. We can help to tackle inefficient homes, which are generally categorised as an energy performance certificate band D or over, and that in consequence can help to reduce energy bills. And at the moment, we're in a really difficult situation of around 6.7 million UK households estimated to be in fuel poverty since October. And that's estimated data. We don't have measured data since 2 years ago through the government. So we have a bit of a lag in known data for sure, but that's around almost a quarter of all households. So it's a really big problem. And in Yorkshire and the Humber in particular, when we compare with other regions in England, we've got the least amount of homes rated A to C. So most at risk of fuel poverty, that other 60%. Most fuel poor households, and again, this data is quite old, 17.5% 2 years ago alongside West Midlands. And there was a huge increase between 2018 and 2019 in fuel poor households in the region, and this will have jumped sharply again. And when we think about fuel poverty, I think people often tend to think about older people. It's actually the majority single or couples with young children. And that can have huge consequences on the health of those children. I think we're all aware of that case in Rochdale with the damp and mould, which could be partly the result of poor heating and inefficient heating for the home. Around 18%, sorry, I can't quite see my data. Around 18% are over 60. So there's still a bunch of people there that we need to be concerned about. But when we're thinking about policies and the way to tackle old homes, we really need strategies that cater for the whole population. And just to think about some of the stats of where we are in terms of measures, and we do need to get beyond thinking about individual measures with retrofit to think about whole house systems, but measures are one way that we can measure or evaluate progress. So we're doing fairly well in relation to double glazing and cavity wall insulation. Those options are quite well covered, but there's many solid walls which are not yet insulated. It's not going to be suitable for every home. We really need to be assessing each home in detail before specifying any type of insulation, but there's a lot of progress that we could make with that. And we could also top up around 2/3 of lofts as well with extra insulation. And then we really have very little progress in relation to solar thermal, solar panels and heat pumps, and along with those, battery storage and smart energy control systems. There's a huge opportunity there. So in my perspective and from my insights from the industry and from research, how can we make retrofit happen? So I think we need a long-term ambitious strategy, both nationally and then also based in Yorkshire. And that can allow industry and householders to develop trust in a plan that's widely promoted and understood. One-stop shops can help with that, and we'll hear more about those this evening, and that can offer householders and builders information. And in my view, could allow defect reporting and continuous learning as a continuous process. We can raise standards to ensure better quality homes in the region, and also test compliance post retrofit completion. So 1 year in, 5 years, 10 years, it all takes resource, but I think it's really necessary to see how well those houses are performing and if they're still healthy environments. And then with all of this, we can upskill the sector and create new jobs within the sector, and also future-proof people who are already working in the sector. We can develop partnerships, so building on current links with West Yorkshire Combined Authority, Yorkshire Climate Commission, and also those working in housing adaptation and maintenance, people are already working in homes, making sure that they're fit for people to come out of hospital into. And I think we're going to see a huge increase in inequalities from people who need care at home, but who cannot sufficiently heat their home. And I think that's going to be a real problem in the future. And there's already people out there delivering fuel products services. So can we build on that and do more with that? Can we get the resource to them when they're already working in homes? And then low income support. So how do we make measures affordable to every household? And that is a really tricky one, but I think that we are starting to see government investment in this space. So if we can use that carefully and get the funding directed to where it's needed, make the most of bulk purchases, I think we've got real opportunity there. And then finally, enabling a joined up and whole house system, energy supply and neighbourhood retrofit planning. And that's quite a lot. It's quite easy to talk about this. This is it's a lot of work, but as we'll see today, we've got lots of people already working in the sector. So how do we join all of this up and do more? So what's next for Yorkshire? We started to think about a retrofit strategy, and I wonder if we can integrate that in the climate and environment plan. This was some work with others involved on the call that we put together a chapter in a handbook, and that was an alternative manifesto for the mayor a couple of years ago. And we can also learn from others further afield. So last year, and I think I saw on the participant list that somebody is here from Retrofit Reimagined. So it was an event last year, and what if we understood energy, health, racial, climate justice to be linked, and something that we can approach to retrofit by bringing all of these factors together. We can think about how we can bring people together in the city and in the whole region to deal with all these challenges, and how we can perhaps link them with referral networks and others to get to where we need to be with the quality of homes and make sure that everybody can remain comfortable and safe at home. So thank you for listening. And one final idea is in Birmingham, there's a Green Doors scheme, and they've offered to support Leeds to set up a Green Door scheme in Leeds where we can go and visit other people's retrofitted homes and learn from those. I think that could be a really big step for the area to increase knowledge in what's possible. So, thank you. Look forward to hearing the other talks.
Thank you, Kate. Gosh, that was really fast. Please keep an eye on the chat as you go, because there are some nice introductions still coming in and comments here. I think we'll probably move on, if that's okay, because I just am so aware of how much. But thank you for setting the scene. I think that was really helpful, Kate, just to give us that beginning for this evening's input, really. So I think we're going to move straight to West Yorkshire Combined Authority and the Better Homes Hub, can't say it, and Nadia McPherson. And you're going to tell us about that, Nadia.
Yeah, thank you. Can everybody see full screen slides?
Yeah.
Hopefully, brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you. That's good. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'll kick off because I know we are short on time. So hi, everyone. Thanks for inviting me along. It's a real pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to hearing the other presentations. It looks like an action-packed evening. So I'm Nadia McPherson, and I'm a programme lead in the Energy and Environment team here at the West Yorkshire Combined Authority. As Chris said, working on the Better Homes Hub programme. So what I'd like to cover this evening is a quick introduction to the Combined Authority for any of those who might not have come across us before. I'll then discuss some of the regional challenges and opportunities around retrofitting homes, so building a little bit on the information that's just been covered. And then we'll finish with the Better Homes Hub programme, so what it is, what we're proposing to do, and then hopefully we'll have a couple of minutes for questions at the end. So firstly, apologies, because I appreciate there's probably many on this call that fall outside of the geography shown on the screen, but I hope that at least some of this information in the presentation will still be useful to you. So for those who aren't familiar with us, the West Yorkshire Combined Authority works across the region in partnership with 5 local authorities and other key partners such as the West Yorkshire Housing Partnership to develop and deliver policies, programmes and services which benefit the people of West Yorkshire. So the Combined Authority declared a climate emergency in 2019 and set a regional target to be net zero by 2038. In October of 2021, we published the Climate and Environment Plan, which outlines the activity which the Mayor and the Combined Authority is really committed to delivering. And I've hyperlinked the plan in the slides, so please do have a read after this event if you're interested in that. In February of last year, the Mayor allocated 40 million of devolved funding from central government to the climate emergency in West Yorkshire and to kind of start delivery of her plan. But there are 39 actions within the plan, including things like renewable energy generation from solar PV to supporting businesses to reducing their carbon footprint and many others. The one we're interested in today and we'll focus on is retrofitting homes, but it's just kind of to highlight that it does seem like a big sum of money, but there's a huge demand on it here in West Yorkshire. So although retrofitting homes is a national issue, I just wanted to highlight some of the regional challenges and opportunities that there are. So in West Yorkshire, there's 26% of the region's carbon emissions come from domestic buildings. The majority of this is due to burning fossil fuels for heating, so that 79% of our homes are connected to the gas network. 23% of our homes were built before 1919 and are classed as being very old. This is higher than the national average, and these are typically less well insulated and often more difficult to retrofit. Only 34% of the region's homes have an EPC of C or better, and that's compared with 40% nationally. Fuel poverty, as we've already heard about, is also, it's widespread across the country, but it is more of an issue in West Yorkshire than nationally. The latest available data from the State of the Region 2022 shows that around 18% of homes in West Yorkshire are in fuel poverty. And the current energy crisis is further compounding this with, I think the latest forecasts I saw were suggesting that 30% of households could be in fuel poverty this winter, despite government support. So it's clear that we need to improve the condition and energy performance of people's homes, but retrofitting can be extremely costly. So the finance required to retrofit homes in West Yorkshire alone has been estimated at £2.4 billion per year at its peak of delivery. And there's not enough funding coming from central government to support this regional ambition. And the funding that is available is competitive and delivery windows are extremely short. Fundamental to the delivery of retrofit is the workforce who will be manufacturing, designing, installing and delivering the projects. And sadly, the industry has been decimated by stop-start policy and a lack of long-term policy direction. So as a result, there's limited supply chain and workforce trained to deliver quality domestic retrofits. And then from a household perspective, and I've already seen in the chat that there are some householders looking to retrofit their homes, there are sadly multiple barriers disincentivizing them to undertake a retrofit project. So there's a lack of knowledge, uncertainty around how to access trusted advice, high upfront capital costs, a slow return on investment, and the inconvenience caused by disruption while the work's being carried out. And the private rented sector is particularly challenging due to the landlord incurring the upfront cost and the tenant accruing the benefits, and around 20% of West Yorkshire's homes fall into this tenure. So on to some of the more positive stuff, because that's all quite negative. So scaling up retrofit in West Yorkshire can enable a huge reduction in carbon emissions, helping us to get closer to our climate emergency commitments. It can help to alleviate fuel poverty and the wider cost of living crisis. And a recent report from the Northern Housing Consortium looked to quantify this. So it showed the annual bill savings for households living in band D to F homes if they were to be improved to a band C. And these annual energy savings are really significant, especially at the moment with the energy prices where they are. Scaling up retrofit will also create new employment opportunities for people in the region. So the Scaling Up Better Homes Yorkshire report estimated that 30,000 well-paid jobs would be created. And retrofitting homes will also improve the quality of the region's housing stock and the health outcomes of residents. And it's estimated that the impact of cold homes costs the NHS £2 billion every year in England and Wales. So why now? We get asked this kind of quite a lot at the Combined Authority. You know, why do we need to prioritise this programme now? Delaying retrofit activity locks residents into higher energy costs for the long term. It also eats further into our carbon budget and puts us at risk of not delivering on our commitments. If we are to achieve our target of net zero by 2038, that's only 15 years. And it's been estimated that we need to retrofit 680,000 homes in the region. So if we start now, that works out as 45,000 retrofits a year. I've just noticed the figures on this slide are slightly out of date. Sorry about that. But it's a mammoth task, and this number is only going to increase the closer we are to 2038. As already discussed, we need to show the supply chain that we're serious about a long-term commitment to retrofit, to send them the right signals, giving them the confidence to create green jobs, train new staff, and upskill existing staff. So taking a step back to something I said towards the beginning of my presentation, as a team, we've been given a high-level indicative allocation of 40 million to spend on the climate emergency in West Yorkshire. However, before we can commit any of this funding, we need to go through what's called an internal assurance process to assure that we're spending taxpayers' money effectively and on the right things. So in order to access a slice of the 40 million, hence the picture on the slide, for the Better Homes Hub programme, we need to write a business case detailing exactly what we'll do, how we'll do it, how much it'll cost, and quantify those benefits. Some of this development work and thinking has already started with the help of Andy Boyle from Otley Energy, who's on this call and speaking in a few minutes, and also my predecessor, James Brass. So a big thank you to both of them. And I also understand that Zero Carbon Yorkshire have been involved in these development discussions as well. So thank you for your feedback and guidance to date. So over the next few slides, I'll give you an overview of the activity that we are proposing as part of the Better Homes Hub. However, it's important to stress that it is still a work in progress. We haven't written or submitted those business cases, but we do feel we have quite a good understanding of what we would like to do through the hub. So I'll explain that in a bit more detail. So what is the Better Homes Hub? It's a regional programme to scale up domestic retrofit, to do all of the things I've just talked about in terms of tackling the climate emergency, alleviating fuel poverty, and providing that long-term commitment to domestic retrofit, which will give the market confidence. It's an umbrella programme which brings together all of the Combined Authority's activity on domestic retrofit. So in the past, we had quite a piecemeal approach of little projects here and there, but it's now all come under this umbrella of the Better Homes Hub. And we have a team resourced within the Combined Authority to work on it as well. Our vision for the programme is that everyone in West Yorkshire can live in a warm, comfortable and low carbon home. So that means supporting all residents to come on this journey with us. So not just people living in social housing, who we've done a lot of work with, and I'll explain that in a few slides' time. But we really need to start to tackle the so far mostly ignored and arguably more tricky owner-occupiers in the private rented sector. So some of the key activities which we're proposing to write into the business cases that we'll need to write for the Better Homes Hub. So firstly, to deliver in collaboration with our district partners, so our local authorities, a number of area-based demonstrator projects which test approaches, strengthen the supply chain, create new delivery models, and show that we can start to deliver at scale in an area. So we're due to meet with our local authority housing colleagues next week to discuss what their priorities are for a demonstrator project in their areas. Some of the early ideas are to focus on things like inner city stone-built terrace properties, looking at a cross-tenure project, working with a housing association as an anchor in the community, and also an able to pay scheme focused on providing an excellent customer service and a financial offer to incentivize those that are able to pay to invest in retrofit. Another focus for the Better Homes Hub programme is mobilising sufficient resource to make sure the region secures its fair share of government funding for retrofit projects. So to date, the Combined Authority and the local authorities have had a number of successful grant funding bids, and we need to continue to pursue these funding opportunities where they are available, but they are resource intensive. Thirdly, we will establish a one-stop shop. I know there's quite a lot of discussion going on this evening about different one-stop shop models, so it'll be really interesting to listen into those. The full scope of the one-stop shop is really still to be determined, but we are likely going to procure some external specialist consultancy support to develop this with us. So watch this space. I would expect something to go live in the coming months. However, it is worth noting, as we will see this evening, there's lots of good activity going on around the country and also within Europe that we can learn from. So we don't need to reinvent the wheel, and we will look to learn from the expertise of others where we can. So we've already had really good discussions with the North of Tyne Combined Authority, the Liverpool City region, Glasgow City region this morning, and we're due to meet with Greater Manchester Combined Authority next week to learn about their Your Home Better programme. And we're also part of the UK Green Buildings Council steering group, so that's another way to learn from the pioneers in the space. So it's clear we've got a lot to do, but on this slide, I just wanted to reflect some of the good retrofit activity that's already going on in the region. So I've captured the projects which the Combined Authority is currently delivering or has just completed delivery on. However, it's worth highlighting there's also many others out there that the local authorities are running independently. So the first one I just wanted to highlight is we recently completed delivery of the Manningham Retrofit scheme in Bradford. So this was a project to test the challenges of retrofitting hard to treat stone built properties, many of which have conservation status in a hard to reach community. 150 households in 2 deprived areas were provided with free whole house retrofit plans and also energy efficiency advice. And for this project, we partnered with Manningham Housing Association, and they were really invaluable in securing buy-in from the residents due to their standing in the community. So we'll make sure to integrate the learnings of that project into any demonstrator going forward. We also have 3 programs which are retrofitting social housing in the region. So firstly, we were successful in securing funding from the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, Wave 1, which is a bit of a mouthful. So we secured, in total, it was a £10.38 million programme to retrofit about 1,300 social housing properties. The consortium delivering Wave 1 is a combination of 9 registered providers of social housing across West Yorkshire, which vary in size and retrofit experience. And this project is currently in delivery with a funding deadline of March. However, we have actually applied for an extension due to some of the challenges that the teams are facing in delivering that. At the end of last year, we also submitted a Wave 2 bid on behalf of another consortium of 9 housing providers, 6 of which were involved with Wave 1. So it's good that they're coming back for a bit more. That hasn't completely put them off. Despite the challenges with Wave 1, the bid is more ambitious and consists of retrofitting 2,428 properties. And the total funding requirement for that is 31.6 million. 53% of which is co-funded by the housing providers. So it shows that they're massively invested in this as well. The results of that bid are due to be announced late February of this year, so do keep your fingers crossed. And then finally, the last one I wanted to mention is the booster programme. So at the end of last year, in response to the cost of living crisis, the Mayor committed just over 5 million of Combined Authority funding to retrofit almost 1,800 homes in areas of high deprivation. So as it's our own funding with that, we're not restricted by the eligibility criteria from BAYS, which does give us a little bit more flexibility. So we're not constrained to deliver specific EPC outputs, but instead this programme focuses on enhancing the warmth and comfort of homes. And this work commenced in December and will continue through to winter 23-24. That's all I have time to cover in this evening's session, but I would be happy to take any questions now, and also I've popped my contact details on this slide as well. If anyone would like a more detailed conversation outside of this meeting, I would be happy to do that.
Nadia, can I pick up? Thank you for that. Sorry.
That's okay.
And yes, you got through that very speedily. There's been some discussion on the chat about money, and I think probably there's some misunderstanding in here. As I understood it, the 40 million you mentioned was the total Mayor's Fund, only part of which is going to this project.
That's correct.
12 million, but I don't know if that's right, but it doesn't matter. And then people are dividing that 40 million by the number of houses. As my understanding, it's not the intention that money is to provide the retrofit, but to pump prime the retrofit process.
Yeah, that's the difficulty. Retrofit's expensive. Even if we had 40 million, we could only do, you know, if you do a whole house deep retrofit, you can be talking anywhere between 50 and 70,000 pounds. So although it would be brilliant to retrofit all those homes, it wouldn't get us very far. It's not enough funding. So what we're trying to do with, and yes, the 40 million is for much wider than just the Better Homes Hub programme. We will try and get as much as we can for the programme, because it is a priority for the organisation, and the Mayor really does see it as one of the flagship projects, particularly in terms of tackling the climate emergency. But what we're trying to do through the Better Homes Hub programme is enabling activity. So hence the one-stop shop. It's, can we give people that are able to pay a really good information, a really good service and customer journey, and handhold them through the process to make retrofitting their home really easy. Hopefully have some sort of financial offer that we can have alongside that, so that people can, you know, there's various models out there, but have a financial offer to pay for that as well. So yes, sorry, that was a long-winded answer to your question, I think.
I think we needed it actually, so thank you. To be clear, there are some other comments about the technical side of retrofit, which I think we will address. I mean, in the chat, some very interesting comments in here. Certain amount of cynicism possibly about government involvement in retrofit. I think we'll you know, I think we all have our own view on that. So there aren't any other questions, I think.
Could I ask a question?
Sorry.
Could I ask a question, Chris?
Okay, Kevin, we'll as you're going to be speaking shortly. Yeah.
I was just going to ask the question whether or not you're familiar with the, I think it's 110% loans that were offered out in, I think it's Italy, and they're also doing it in another country, I believe. I don't know whether you've looked at that, Nadia, and that's something that's being put on people's radar.
Yeah, it is on my radar, Kevin. I do remember seeing it at some stage. I can't recall the information just now, but I think it was really successful, and they've had huge number of retrofits in Italy in the last few years. I think largely down to that offer. I think it's to do with tax breaks, but I'm not 100% sure.
If you
People are nodding.
Well, if you want to know more, we ran a session last year, around July, I think it was, on the Insulate Britain website. There is a recording of that session, and we had a friend of mine from Italy who knows a lot about that scheme talking. We had a presentation from Matthew about the Irish one-stop shops, which he's going to talk about tonight, I believe. And we also had some interesting input about what the French government's doing as well. So that's worth looking at. And certainly there was a section on the, you know, the good and the bad of that Italian scheme. So worth just referencing.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yeah. I'm going to move us on, I think, because again, we need to keep the input coming. Really, there are some good comments going in. I can't quite catch them because I'm talking and reading. It's beyond me. But yeah, some nice comments, interesting comments there, I think. So thank you, Nadia. I think that's really interesting. Bring us into West Yorkshire Combined Authority, and as you said, well, it's been said, you know, one-stop shops are really important to this process. And actually there was a comment about skills, and of course one-stop shops help us to begin to sort of coordinate and develop skills as well. So we're going to look at, we're going to have 3 inputs, I think. So I'm just looking at my notes actually, because this was tailored. But and the first is Matthew Tulley, who is a director of Zero Carbon Yorkshire, and has been studied the Irish experience quite well. We've been on a journey with that, haven't we, Matthew? Well, I haven't been there personally, but so over to you, Matthew.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Chris. So this is a whistle stop on what we learned from Ireland. We went on a visit in May last year, and we did a little film, which we'll show you. When we're comparing what Ireland are doing and what we are doing, it's worth noting that England is 10 times larger than Ireland. So whatever Ireland are doing, we'll be doing 10 times as much. So the history of one-stop shops in Ireland, the initial retrofits were done by Tipperary Energy Agency in 2008. So they've been doing this for 15 years and they have been developing their process and contractors for that time. It's really taken off in the last 2 years, but the learning and the foundation of it goes back a long time. One of the key things that they found, which is echoing what others have said, is retrofit's very expensive and difficult and complex. So you have to focus on the customer. And that's why they developed a one-stop shop. There's lots of different versions of what a one-stop shop should be, but this will give one of those. When they were setting up the one-stop shop, in taking it from a local to a national thing, the key was establishing visits. So they had lots of visits from architects, from the Irish Standards Organisation, the retrofit industry, so that when people started talking from government to the industry, people said, oh yes, we know how it works. We know so it's there. Their version of BEIS is SEAI, which is the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland. So they're the government which have provided the standards, they're handing out the grants, and they're also managing the quality assurance process, which is very robust. So far, they have authorised 12 one-stop shops. So if England were the same, we would have 120 of them by now. And they have enrolled so far 2,000 people last year in Centres of Excellence for Retrofitting. So again, if we were on board with them, we would by now have had 20,000 people enrolled in retrofitting activities. Right, I am going to now move over onto my video, which is this one, and there we go.
I don't think we can hear the sound. Can anybody else hear the sound?
No, can't hear it.
Hang on.
Sorry,
Hi, Matthew. You just need to share your screen and sound. It's just a slightly different when you're going to share screen. It'll say.
right. Thank you. How do I do that? Let's go on to.
Start sharing.
It says I'm sharing, but.
I think it's usually a little button when you first start to share the screen. I learned that one the other day.
Right, thank you. Let me stop that and I will start again. So if I share a screen.
Then bottom left, there should be a tick box.
Oh, share sound, thank you. Wonderful.
In Ireland, they've been running with one-stop shops for deep retrofit, which give comfortable homes, which are healthy and affordable to run. And they're doing it now. This can show the UK how we could take fossil fuels out of our homes.
Retrofit is complex, so it's essential to support customers in their journey. And this is the idea behind the one-stop shop. It supports the people, the process, the suppliers and the money. In February 2022, the Irish government introduced a package of measures to make it cheaper and easier for homeowners to undertake home energy upgrades. The one-stop shop is at the centre of this.
It was so easy in so many ways because you had people taking care of different aspects of the whole process that we didn't have to think about.
So this is the one-stop shop, isn't it?
This is the one-stop shop. So the design aspects of it, we were all involved, but they knew exactly what to do with the retrofitting. And they kind of told us, this is what's going to happen. So these are the things that you need. You know, you need an MBHR, you need triple glazed windows, you need external wall insulation. And then from there, we told them what we wanted. And yeah, they gave us a quote for that. We went through the loans and the government grant. It was very simple.
They all straight away said, no, we want the energy efficient house. And that's always the case now. Like, no matter what you're doing, it's energy efficient is the very first thing to say when you have your initial design meeting with them.
But without the active support of building contractors, there's no way of scaling up.
The UK building companies don't believe that there's a demand for energy efficient houses, so they're not building them.
But there wasn't a demand for them in Ireland before it was enforced either.
It's good for both us and it's good for the homeowner. Like Super Homes is looking after the homeowner, and then they're giving us a spec as well, so we can price the spec. So if we put in everything that's on it, A, B, C, they're going to get the rate, and that's that's set up, whether it's a B1, A2 or A3. We go into an estate with 20 houses in and just start at the beginning, but people know what's happening then as it moves along. It's seamless enough.
Because retrofit is hard, you use a one-stop shop to support the customer. And because setting up a one-stop shop is hard, it's worth visiting somewhere where it's already tried and tested.
This is how Ireland is retrofitting a quarter of its housing stock over the next 10 years, creating jobs, reducing energy consumption, saving money and saving lives. Ireland's been ever so helpful, so come and see for yourself.
Right, so that was, let's go back to this one. That was the film. So there's the link on there if somebody wants to watch it again with Vimeo. So what we've done here is to try and encapsulate what a one-stop shop means. So if you look at the people, so this is how Ireland have done it. If you look at the people side, within the one-stop shop, you've got the salesman, you've got the surveyor who are going out to check houses, you've got the designers designing the process, the project management who manage the contractors, and they have their own quality team inside, as well as the external quality auditors. As far as the processes go, obviously you have all the design guides for standard routines, there's all the different contracts between the one-stop shop and the different companies. So the contractual side is quite complicated to set up, as is the auditing and records side. As far as materials, they will authorise systems, so things like the ventilation systems, which are obviously essential in any retrofit, as well as the heat pump systems and some of the components. So things like triple glazing, they will be using components that they know work. You go through, they manage the builders, that's both the contractors and the tradesmen. I think the main job is between the one-stop shop and the contractors, and then the contractors will then go on employing the tradesmen. So the chap that you saw putting the external wall insulation on, he would have dealt with the contractor who then dealt with the one-stop shop. But as far as the customer is concerned, they don't have to know anything about who's doing the job. They know the job's being done by a bunch of people who the one-stop shop have authorised and are managing. As far as the money goes, obviously they've got a fantastic grants, maximum €35,000, 50% grant for the one-stop shop. So they've got substantial funding in Ireland, which makes their job go a lot easier. There's a whole bunch of low-cost loans which have been developed. So, for instance, the Post Office have got a low-cost loan at 4.8% over 10 years. But there's lots of different providers of loans. They don't mind doing it because it's low risk. It's low risk because it's all quality controlled. It's done to a robust process. And they also manage the cash flow. If we sort of compare that one-stop shop with what we have in Yorkshire at the moment, there's a number of one-stop shops being set up. And the designer side, the project management side is being looked at. At the moment, I don't think there's any one-stop shops who actually will do the job for you and subcontract to the contractor. They might help you provide a contractor and they might give you some advice on which contractor to use, but they don't do the full one-stop shop. There's very limited availability of grants. So, just comparing the one-stop shop that works in Ireland, so these are all the bits in green which you need to make it work really properly, and where we've got to so far, there's a way to go. So you can use this template to help design your one-stop shop and do a quick evaluation of just how full a service you're looking to provide. We've got another visit to Ireland, 22nd, 23rd of Feb. So if anyone from West Yorkshire wants to come along, they'll be joining Andy Simmons, who's the CEO of the AECB. We're taking along the MD and marketing manager from the National Self-Build and Renovation Centre in Swindon. We've got a young one-stop shop in Cambridge coming, and there's a few other people who are on the call who haven't booked their flights yet, but may well be coming. So that's us. Back to you then, Chris.
Thank you so much, Matthew. And I do think that, you know, there's so many lessons there, the things you have to do to get it right. You know, the long-term planning, the infrastructure, the one-stop shops, the training, you know, and the financing, and it's putting all that package together, which is really picking up everything Kate said at the beginning, really, isn't it, in many ways. So thank you. That's a very good overview of one-stop shops and how they can work. And we're moving straight on to Andy Boyle, who knows an awful lot about one-stop shops. I know, and I'm not exactly sure what you're going to say, Andy. So over to you.
Thanks, Chris. Could you give me permission to share the screen, please?
I think you have, haven't you? Or is Lucy?
It's saying host disabled.
Ah.
Unless you just deliberately me, Lucy.
Are you okay now?
Yeah, that's good. Perfect. Can you see that?
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about the Leeds Retrofit Accelerator, which is a bit of a mouthful, a local authority-led area-based approach to retrofit delivery and finance. So my name's Andy Boyle. I'm a director of Tulley Energy, which is a community energy company. But we've spent the last few years working on retrofit, working with WICA on the development of the Better Homes Hub, and more recently on the development of this Leeds Retrofit Accelerator. So by way of background, the project emerged from the Prime Minister's Business Council. So last February, then Prime Minister Boris Johnson gathered lots of chief execs from lots of big organisations, representative of different sectors, and set them the challenge of how do we drive economic growth in the country. Retrofit encouragingly emerged as one of the key themes from that council, and a group committed to take it forward. A group of the chief execs committed to take it forward. Lloyds Bank are critical to that, and Octopus Energy have been critical. And they approached Leeds to look at, having done some research, approached Leeds to look at how could a local authority help drive the market and start to create the market, with a particular focus on the able to pay market, and how could local authorities get involved. So Lloyds commissioned a group of consultants, including ourselves, to work with Leeds and Lloyds and the rest of the Business Council on developing the model. And that's what I'll talk about today. So at the previous Zero Carbon Yorkshire events, you will have seen me talking about the barriers to retrofit. Been lots of discussions about it today. A really complex system of barriers, but really at the heart of it is this lack of a compelling offer. So lack of compelling offer means there's no demand, means there's no supply, and fundamental to that is the lack of the finance compelling offer. So what we've been seeking to do with the Leeds Retrofit Accelerator is design a model that starts to overcome these barriers. So thinking about the trusted offer and the role of a local authority in providing that trust to homeowners, really getting into the idea of smart designs and what is it that we do to people's homes and what improvements do they see, and really life-changing improvements that people see. How do we maximize community-based marketing by going into a community, understanding the housing stock, but understanding the community and working with local networks? And really importantly, and I'll talk about this, is how do we create an immediate delivery capability, knowing that, that there's a lack of a supply chain in the system? And what role does an attractive finance offer provide in driving demand, but also driving confidence in the supply chain that they should be getting involved? So just a really simplified version of the wider model that we put together. This is about Leeds City Council having direct involvement in the delivery vehicle, which is a bit of I think, a pioneering step by Leeds City Council. So Leeds Retrofit Accelerator would be that delivery vehicle. And really importantly, following on from what Matthew was talking about in the Irish model, is providing that the simplest possible experience for homeowners, a trusted experience, but a simple experience. So they're not having to deal with lots of different suppliers across what is a really complex system. So initially that involves working with a managing agent. Leeds has great experience and great successes of area-based approaches within the fuel poor market and experience of working with that kind of supply chain. So the initial intention is to be able to deliver immediately and therefore work with more volume builders who themselves will work with subcontractors. But because this is Leeds City Council led, the discussions and developments are in conjunction with the Better Homes Hub. There'll obviously be that really massive emphasis on local supply chain development from the beginning. So how do we create an immediate delivery capability, but how do we build local supply chains to be involved going forwards? And I think crucial as well, but not available yet, is the launch of a finance model. So we certainly don't have this sort of grants that they have in Ireland yet. So how do we provide an attractive finance model? So working with Lloyds and the Green Finance Institute, we'll be looking at developing a property linked finance model, which brings in low cost, long-term finance that's attached to the home rather than the homeowner. And so a huge amount of work's gone into the blueprint already, but it's an outline of what the model would look like. We did a lot of work on the customer journey, looking at different models. Matthew supported with our Irish model, did a lot of research around emerging models, one-stop shop specifically. And I've just highlighted here that the fundamental aspect of this is that we will be going into a community and working with that community. And that's the real strength of this area-based approach, is that that hyper-local marketing, so that we can go street by street, working with community networks and really starting to build word of mouth. So build demand from that lived experience street by street. Next steps are, we have the blueprint. So next steps are around raising the seed funding to take it through into delivery. So we have funding to develop and test a prototype within a community in Leeds, and we're getting on with organisational development in lieu of seed funding. So the aim is to have procurement in place and actually start to deliver some homes in late 2023, which is incredibly exciting, I think. And that's a whistle stop tour, because I had 5 minutes. I could probably speak for 50.
Oh, thank you, Andy, and thank you for being timely as well. I think it's great, although, you know, we have got very short presentations and everybody's being driven to keep them short. Actually, these short bursts of information are really helpful. Yeah. Flag things for people. There's still comments coming in the chat, so don't forget to keep an eye there as well. And I'm not actually keeping up very well at the moment. So we're going to hear from about York, I think. Sorry, I'm not keeping up myself now.
I'm hoping somebody from York Community Energies here who could just give us like a minute on what's going on there. And then Chris, you were going to talk about Kirklees as well. Is there somebody?
Well, I'll talk about Kirklees while I can see.
You wave if you're from York Community Energy, won't you? Ivana.
Yeah, do you want to say anything about what's happening in York or not? You don't have to.
Okay, I kind of thought that one of my colleagues might jump in. I'm sure there's Johnny or Tom. No, okay, because they might actually be prepared.
Sorry, I'm marshalling children at the moment.
Right, okay.
Okay. Well, I guess just briefly then, yeah, well, we are basically, so there's two things for York Community Energy. We kind of have two strands to us. One is called York Energy Advice, which has been a joint project with St. Nick's, which is actually working with fuel poor households, providing advice and sort of trying to get them to see how their homes could be improved. And that will become York Community Energy's project. And that sort of helped us in a way to actually crack on also with providing services for the sort of able to pay, as we call them, people, and sort of providing how home assessment for householders. So very much with the whole house sort of approach and fabric first. So definitely talk about ventilation as much as insulation. So this year we've actually had some funding to help us merge those two strands and sort of actually provide York Energy advice as a sort of a one day to be a one-stop shop for York, a source where people can come and get advice, and hopefully one day we can also provide a hand-holding service, so actually take people on the whole retrofit journey. So we're kind of at quite early stages of the process, and certainly keen to learn from others how they've done it. I mean, it sounds like Ireland is cracking on with it nicely. I'd be keen to have a look, but bit of short notice. So yes, there's plenty going on in York. Our capacity is currently quite small, but we're doing what we can with what we've got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
So
nice.
Kate, do you want to say about Kirklees as well?
Well, I think probably we're a little bit early days, but with the Climate Commission and myself, I'm trying to describe it as spinning plates, really, kind of get enough people together to get some critical mass for maybe for community retrofit. I think Kirklees is, as a district, perhaps is not as far ahead as some, so we need to begin to see how we can engage more people, get things moving. So really, that's probably all I can usefully say at the moment, Jamie. And I think we've got much more interesting people to hear from. So, just keeping an eye on the chat. Yeah. Great. Yeah, I think, yeah, just keep your eye on it all the time. There's posts going in all the time. So I think we'll keep moving, Charlie. That's okay. There are no obvious questions coming up on any presentation.
That's fine, so, yes. So if we go on to the finance.
Yeah, we will. And we're going to look at retrofit training and funding retrofit projects and have a sort of quick fire sharing session. And we're going to hear, first of all, from Simeon Perry on retrofit funding. And to be honest, I'm not going to summarise anymore, Simeon. It's much better if you introduce yourself, I think. Let's see you at the moment. You're on mute at the moment, Simeon.
There we go. Sorry, I thought I'd done that.
Yeah.
Right. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Just checking on sharing. So thanks very much. My name's Simeon Perry. I lead the charity arm within Efficiency North called Enable Communities, and I'll talk a little bit more about what is Efficiency North and the work we're beginning to do in a moment. So, so the Efficiency North mission is to bring together social housing providers and the construction industry to achieve the best value for communities in Northern England by providing futures, building homes and buying smarter to save time and money. And it's the providing futures bit that I want to concentrate on, if you like. Futures in terms of concentrating from the charity perspective, focusing in on the Yorkshire region and training and employment for people with a focus on those from low income communities. So Efficiency North has got sort of comprised of 4 component teams, if you like. The largest part is a social housing procurement consortium with 52 member social landlords, and I'll talk through a bit more about them in a moment. A growing turnover, and it is a mutually owned organisation by the member social housing landlords. So it's a surplus for purpose, if you like. Also, as part of the organisation, there's a team called Enable Futures, which provides flexi-job apprenticeships in Yorkshire and the North East, and has a construction training hub that's pictured on the right there in North Hull. There's a small team which provides development land services called Enable Build, And then the bit I want to focus on is my team, which is the charity arm, which, as I've already said, seeks to support skills development and employment. So here's a picture of all of the social landlord member organisations. Broadly, over 90% of social landlords that have stock in West Yorkshire are covered, as well as other areas, and it's growing. If I move on to the next slide, whoops, sorry, all of those landlords logos with red boxes on are where Efficiency North currently has retrofit-based procurement activity. So you can see some of the larger landlords like WDH, WDH is Wakefield, by the way, Wakefield District Homes, Leeds City Council, Together Housing that has about 35,000 units on the M62 corridor, In Communities, which is the landlord that took over the former council stock of Bradford, and so forth. So there's a clear density map of retrofitting works. A lot of that is loft, cavity wall, and general insulation, because social housing are sort of approaching it on a fabric first approach by and large, to put the properties above EPC level C. So a clear bit is there is needing to enable retrofit training, and the charity is focusing on enabling retrofit training. So how is it going to do that? One is to ensure the PAS compliancy. Apologies for acronyms, but I'm making assumption that talking to people in the sector that are aware of what PAS is. And through that, we've partnered with the leading retrofit training organisation for PAS compliancy, the Retrofit Academy, to provide their courses. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. And then the sort of PAS compliant training, of which is 35,000 people need to be trained, only comprise of about 16% of the sector, and over 60% of the sector needs to be trained are the trades. And in a very innovative industry-led collaboration, beginning to develop training pathways for insulation in particular, and then possibly heat pumps, although there's very low levels in social housing. And then I began talking to Kevin Pratt, who I know is on the call, about passive house, and that's why there's a question. Where will that go? And I know there's a lot of chat about leads and planning regulations requirements on passive house. So in terms of retrofit training for PAS, partnered as a training broker for the Retrofit Academy. Retrofit Academy recently was successful in a BAYS training grant, which distributed £9.2 million for retrofit coordination training and associated PAS works, some for insulation and some for heat pumps. We've sort of marketed that amongst our social housing network, as well as the contractor, the contractors on our supply chain, and got, you know, so far 38 people have signed up on those courses, including representatives from those landlords listed. So, you know, playing our small part to support greater compliancy, greater knowledge of the retrofit sector. Then also trying to develop training with the trades, and because of Fabric First focusing in on the solid wall insulation sector. In Britain, there is 8 million solid wall properties. Kate Simpson already talked about 12% of those are insulated, and you know, in the totality, the number of solid wall properties are just under a third of the total stock compared to cavity. We've already in previous presentations talked about the amount of stock built before 1920, and in social housing in particular, there's a lot of 1960s, 70s stock, which is all sort of non-traditional, which is solid wall built. And there is a phenomenal skills crisis in this sector. The trade is highly dependent on migrant labour, and the Home Office aren't considering that installers are eligible for skilled workforce visas. It's those that are left and not migrant. It's very much like much of construction, an ageing workforce. And England is way behind the curve compared particularly to Scotland and to some extent Wales in terms of the qualifications for the sector. In England, there are no apprenticeships in insulation and building treatment yet, and through the Yorkshire further education colleges, there is no NVQ assessors. So overall, the sector needs 13,000 more employees in Yorkshire alone by the end of this decade. And then in terms of compliance, a large proportion of the sector, and this is from a sort of confidential anonymous survey from contractors, do not believe that there is PAS compliancy at all times in the EWI sector, as there's a requirement to have in teams of 4 at least one that is NVQ trained. So there is a real need for professionalisation in this particular sector. So if we look to the jobs in insulation, this graph is taken from the Construction Leadership Council, and it shows, if I can put the cursor on here, sorry, it's very small. This is where we are now, sorry, there. And the green shows the growth of insulation specialists that are needed between now and 2031 here, type thing. So it's a huge burgeoning market that really between the trade bodies and the contractors collectively know there's a issue, significant issue, but don't quite know how to tackle it. So through the contractors currently working with Efficiency North, I approached that are delivering EWI in some social landlords in West Yorkshire. I approached the trade bodies, of which there is again a fragmented picture. So there's three main trade bodies, of which they don't all get on with each other, and a guarantee agency as well called Swiga. Through them, they've recruited some of their system designers and the manufacturers for external wall insulation. And then there are installer companies that actually undertake the work. And they hadn't approached the trade bodies or the main companies, hadn't approached the education sector in England on how to approach this, whereas they had in Scotland and working really closely. So I've brought in Leeds College of Building, and we're beginning to develop, and it's really early days, a collaborative skills pathway where the sector will need new entrants. We need to upskill the sector. The current boarders and finishers undertaking the rendering could have greater multi-skills, and thereby their earnings could increase, and need to professionalise the service and ensure there is NVQs in Yorkshire. And in doing so, that will grow the market on a small, low-level scale. If I go back to support a little bit and create a good practice template on how the model could be rolled out to support this growth coming here. So, and it would be a first. So that's a key area Enable Communities is currently working on. And there's numerous barriers. One of the biggest barriers is the whole self-employment nature of the market. And self-employed people won't wish to lose their income for attending a training course for multi-skilling and things like that. So there needs to be sort of hearts, minds, incentives, levers in the process. Then the other bit of work.
Simeon, we need to wrap up in a minute.
Yeah, one last slide is retrofit credits. Sorry, I was conscious of time. I didn't realise it was going on so long. So just really early, beginning to look at how retrofit credits could work to support social housing and thereby reducing tenants' carbon impact and their energy costs. And there's numerous areas to explore, such as how do you measure carbon reduction undertaken in social housing retrofit? How do you create the carbon credits of carbon saved? And then how do you attract the offsetting funding, especially from the financial sector, so that we can then lever in more finance into social housing. So apologies for being slightly over, and there's my contact details, and I gather all the slides will be shared on the website. So I'm going to stop sharing now.
Oh, thank you, Simeon. Pop your contact details in the chat as well, so that people can pick that up. Absolutely fascinating, and we really needed longer, but in a way it gives us that taste, so I think really valuable. So thank you. We're going to move straight on and hear about zero carbon Harrogate from People Power Retrofit Training from John Kerr. You've got 5 minutes, John.
Okay.
No challenge there.
No challenge there. Right, I just need to share. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Yeah. Okay. Right, I'll start my timer. My name's John Kerr. I'm Retrofit Program Manager for Zero Carbon Harrogate. We are a very small charity, been going just over a year now, and we my role in terms of the retrofit program started in June 22 and is intended to finish in March 24. We're funded by Ofgem, Energy Redress Fund, and Together for Our Planet for this particular, to employ me and to do the things that we want to do on this programme. And like I said, commenced in June, covers the Harrogate district. So it's quite a large area, not all of it populated, but it's around about 64,000 properties or more, but probably a lot more today as they're building more. Demand. So this the programme focuses on both demand and supply. What I mean by that is the demand side is the homeowners, which we're focusing on the able to pay market. The supply is essentially the supply chain, so the builders, the fitters, etc., with a focus on training. Okay, so our objectives are stimulate the house retrofit in Harrogate district on the able to pay, as I've said earlier, enable retrofit marketing through training. So essentially looking at who we need to train to make that happen, raise awareness and support homeowners on retrofit, and encourage supply chain network for retrofit. Some of these objectives have kind of changed slightly as we've gone on from June of last year. We're beginning to realise kind of how poor the supply chain is and the lack of understanding within the industry. So what funding have we got available? First one up here is builders. We're offering an introduction to retrofit awareness in traditional existing buildings. We're using, our current partner is Harrogate College. We're offering a 2-day course bringing up awareness on retrofit. Unfortunately, at the moment, we're finding it really hard to recruit into this. And some of what's been highlighted already in terms of that we're addressing small businesses that are very tight, not able to provide the time to go on these courses. They've also got full order books, and at the moment they are not required to do any of this, which is having an impact on how we're attracting people into those training opportunities. Heating and plumbing engineers. We're offering a course which is air source heat pump, MCS accredited. We're having a lot more success with this. I think a lot of heating engineers, etc., are seeing the future. Obviously, I think the writing's on the wall more for them in terms of gas heaters, combi boilers, etc. So they're a bit more receptive. We've aligned ourselves with GTEC, which is a renewables training provider in Hawes, but they have outlets around the country, and that's a 3-day course. So it's quite a commitment, but we're seeing more and more engineers coming onto that are wanting to get that training. What we're learning as we're delivering this program in that instance is that we need to expand that outside of air source heat pump, because we realize that that's not a cure-all, is into other renewables, and that's what we're looking at the moment in terms of changing that slightly. Retrofit assessors, so we're kind of halfway with that in terms of our recruitment. It's again another difficult area because we have to recruit from domestic energy assessors, and a lot of them don't appear to be that interested at the moment in moving into retrofit assessor. There's a lot more work to it, and we're still working on that. Talking to the providers up and down the country, that the training providers for that, we're finding that again it's quite challenging. They won't move away from DEA. Coordinators are all fully recruited now. So I'm moving on very quickly. Key challenges: recruitment to difficult groups, difficult to reach, lack of motivation in emerging market opportunities, for supply chain, for local high specification products. That's something which we're really trying to look at now. Homeowner knowledge barrier, fix the bucket before you're filling it. I think we're talking about fabric first when I mentioned that. Lack of retrofit skilled trades available to meet current demand, which I'll go on to in a minute. And obviously lack of grant funding for homeowners. And in Harrogate district, we've got 56 conservation areas in district, and nothing is joined up, everything's in silos. Homeowner survey, which we ran last year, 94% of respondents wanted to look at ways to reduce their carbon emissions, which is very positive. 98% were either concerned or very concerned about current cost of energy, which no surprise there. Only 11% were aware of their home's energy performance rating. Yeah, quite stark. And over half wanted to know more about retrofit, which was again very, very positive. And there they saw the biggest barrier was a lack of skilled trades. So we could see that there's a demand there. It's just unfortunately we can't meet it at the moment with the skills trade. Well, I'll finish there. Yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Sorry to break in at the end.
All right.
Thank you so much, John. That was really interesting. I actually want to be in touch with you about some stuff for Leeds, I think. Right, we're going to move straight on to Lucy, talking about Eco4 funding and Eclipse energy funding.
I will be very quick because this is quite new, so it's probably better that I put something into writing and I will send that out. That will go out into the next Zero Carbon Yorkshire newsletter anyway. I've been talking to a company called, I've got a couple of roles. I work for Climate Action Leeds as well, and I'm lead on housing. So we've been trying to find, like, I can echo all the problems that John's talking about. Where's demand, but there's a lack of supply chain to deliver what needs to happen. But there's some new Eco4 funding, which is just which Eclipse Energy, who are based in Halifax, have got, and that is looking at full retrofit, and it's kind of the nearest thing to a one-stop shop that I've seen, because there's two companies that are working together, and most of them are, their employees are in-house, and it's the nearest you can get from a start to finish system, including ventilation, etc. So they have funding for low-income households. So what I'll do is I will put I'll put their website in the chat, and I will have to, obviously we haven't got time now, but I'll be putting some more information into the Zero Carbon Yorkshire newsletter about what opportunities there are for low-income households. And that will also go out to all the climate action leads hubs who I will be in contact with. So I think there are some on the call here.
Oh.
That quick enough?
A gift for a chair, I think that, but really interesting information nevertheless, and it's just piling up. There's so much to think about in all this, isn't there? And it's so interesting. Thank you, Lucy. And Kevin?
Yeah, can I have the share screen, please?
Yeah, I think you just can anyway. Can you, or is it Lucy? Sorry. Oh no, you have to give it. Yeah. Okay.
I'm the co-host now. Right, let's have a look.
While you're getting your slides up, it's Kevin from Pure House, and well, we've been talking recently anyway, haven't we? So I won't.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, give me a second.
Oh, well, you've got something on the side there.
Can you see me right there?
That's it. Perfect.
So my name's Kevin from Pure House. So these are the houses that we built down in Oakenshaw, and we wanted to make a statement. We believe that passive house is the building code of today. And it really does tie in with this conversation that we're having today about retrofit. And since building out this scheme and then going out to set up a zero carbon workshop and then deliver our next scheme of 20 homes in Driglington, what I've done now is I've started this journey of going through a retrofit of my own house. So I'm going to be using external wall insulation, and you can see up there why. I had some people come around to the house and I was asking him how, teaching him how I wanted things doing, and he looked at me and he said, "Why?" He said, "Why?" He was just confused. He was just so confused, and it just gives you an idea of some of the challenges that we've got. I know we've talked about today. A lot of workmen, they've got a lot of work, they've got full order books, and then for them to shift the way that they're training, the way that they're actually delivering their schemes, and actually take time out to educate, it's quite a big ask. But what we are seeing is, so why not? We do definitely have a shift happening here, and I do believe that I believe we've crossed the chasm, and I know that we've got optimism on the call, and I can see the good work that's here. Things are definitely shifting. I really, really do believe that in the next couple of years, I think we can see some really positive change in this country. We've seen what's happened in Scotland. So yeah, let's keep pushing this campaign. Why not now? We're running out of time. Like, we literally do see the impact of climate change, and even more importantly, with Putin and the energy crisis, I think it's really putting a lens on, look, we need to do something different now. So, there's been a lot of talk about retrofitting. I'm retrofitting. We do teach people how to retrofit. Retrofitting is really important. But first and foremost, we need to change the way we're building homes in this country. That is, something I believe that we can really do that. And so we had a meet up quite recently about creating partnerships between public and private companies. And I've noticed there's a fast followers fund that the government have brought out, which is where they're encouraging collaboration. I know that Bradford Council are talking about public procurement, where we can work and go through the procurement process, even though we're not a massive company. So Pure House, we're a small company. How do we get into a scheme where we can deliver something that's not even on the public procurement portal, you know, so we have to change what's happening on the public procurement, but also we need to have small innovative companies. And I use the word innovation loosely. I know that it's been happening for a long time, passive building to passive house standards and also retrofitting, but there's still innovation that goes on there in terms of getting into the marketplace, getting onto the public procurement. You know, these are things that are happening, and it really is happening. So do keep doing what you're doing. Big shout out to Zero Carbon Yorkshire, because what, you know, I won't be having this conversation. We've created education courses. We're rolling out passive house tradesperson now, our second course at Craven. We've delivered retrofit training models up at Harrogate College. So, you know, this is all a result of this network here. So keep the work that you're doing up and keep shouting in your respective fields. So yeah, good to see what people are doing. Keep it up.
Oh. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for the cheerleading as well. That's a very nice sort of I don't know, encouragement for us all, I think. And yeah, no, thank you. So we've got a few minutes.
I just
we're going to talk about warm homes.
Yes.
So,
yes. Yeah, this will be very brief. Sorry, Kevin, I just wanted to ask as well about your training ideas, the training.
Yeah, my apologies. I've jumped past the
big Yorkshire Training Centre.
I've jumped past that.
Yeah, it's okay.
So my apologies. So yeah, we're actually having a meeting this Friday coming about a West Yorkshire training centre. So there's talk about us bringing something together. I think it's maybe Leeds, certainly West Yorkshire. I do know that Harrogate are looking to create a bit of a training hub at their college. So nothing's like concrete in terms of the plans, but we're having conversations and, you know, really positive. So if anyone wants to get behind that, just get in touch.
Brilliant, thank you. So I'm just going to talk about United for Warm Homes and Warm This Winter. So this is kind of for people on the call who are maybe climate campaigners or in climate groups, not necessarily sort of in the trade or the professionals or whatever, but it's a sort of Friends of the Earth and other NGO campaign. I'll put a link in the chat. But the main thing is sort of trying to get more government funding for retrofit, basically. There are other aspects as well, like more financial relief for people. But so if you're in a group or connected to a group, and particularly Friends of the Earth groups are running this, kind of, if you're wanting to campaign more for more national funding for retrofit, that's a good sort of avenue to go down. And there's the linking, a lot of links with fuel poverty campaigning and that kind of thing. So it's sort of putting pressure on the national government to put more funding available. So I'll put a link in the chat, but that's me on that. So okay.
Oh, thank you, Tulley. You're going to put the link in the chat, yeah?
Yeah, actually, while I've got the, I'll just say a couple of things about the group as well. So if anybody isn't in the Zero Carbon Yorkshire Google group, it's a really good way of networking and just sharing information. There's about 150 people in the Google group, so you can share if you're doing something. So I'll put a link in to my email, but also in the follow-up email as well. So that's a really good way of keeping networking. And the other thing is, if people could put in the chat any ideas for, you know, future themes for this group. I was thinking kind of technical retrofit stuff, because we've talked a lot about funding and stuff, but actually how to do it properly and things. So, but just put ideas in the chat, and if anyone wants to help organise an event, please get in touch. And big thanks to Lucy and Kate, who helped enormously and got me a lot with the speaking, getting speakers and ideas. So, and thanks to all our speakers. So, okay, that's me done.
Thank you, Tulley. And well, I think we will finish on time, which is what I was trying to do. But I mean, thank you, everyone, because I think it's really, in many ways, it is very inspiring how much is going on across this region. And I just find I'm constantly bewildered by all